Illinois 88, Purdue 80 in this game. Fantastic win for the Illini. This was a game that started off hot for Illinois, but then Purdue responded. They found themselves with a good lead there for most of the game. Illinois came storming back to get the lead cut to two around halftime, or when halftime was going on, because Will Riley hit that buzzer beater for, well, maybe a buzzer beater. Anyway, the clock expired. You know that weird rule at halftime where it just keeps going. But and then Illinois, they kind of fell away, and then to end the game in the last 2 minutes of the game, Illinois goes on a 13-1 run. Felt similar to maybe what we've seen happen to Illinois at points this season, but this time it was Illinois coming in clutch late in the game. I mean, what do you attribute this to, right, Sonny? Like, what do you attribute this late game surge? What do you attribute this game to? Because this was a game that, for parts of it, it looked like Illinois wasn't going to win, but then they found themselves. They found their three-point shooting late. What do you make of this win?
JR, I'm going to sound a little romantic here, but I've got an Illinois shirt on and a Locked On Illini cap. So, bear with me for a second. But I talked about this in the post-game show of Locked On Illini. For me, it really was when Kasparis made that three at the end, when, Ben Hummerkaus made his three-pointer with, I think, like 4 or 5 minutes left. Every single person who watched them shoot those shots was like, no, you're doing such a good job attacking the rim, getting those inside buckets. Purdue can't stop you. Why are you taking those three-point shots? And they went in. And all I can think about was, I really think that Brad Underwood, as stubborn as he has been all season long, the threes have not been falling, and yet Brad has never changed his mindset and saying, no, if they're open, I want them to shoot them. They're good three-point shots. As long as they're good three-point shots, they're good three-point shooters. I want them to shoot them. And I really think all I can think about were those type of moments. Like, this is kind of what he was building this team towards. It doesn't, sure, it's a bummer losing a game in mid-December because you didn't change your strategy. And I'm not saying that in itself is a good thing, but I do think Brad was kind of thinking big picture. And he knows, look, the light doesn't get brighter than what it looks like in March. And, a game like tonight, the season finale for the Illini, the regular season finale, you're playing a team that you haven't beaten 5 times in a row. They've absolutely had your number. Those shots were very tense shots. And again, shots that if you polled Illini fans, we probably wish they wouldn't take, because Spurs was 2 for 9 going into that shot. Yet he took it without hesitation. And, it proved to ultimately be the dagger. And so really it's just, I guess to answer your question, I'm being kind of long-winded. I feel like Brad's been romanticizing, talking about the type of team that he will have in March. He's like, just wait till everyone gets healthy. No, these three-pointers, even though it was driving us crazy, you, myself, and other actual Illinois fans, this is why. He doesn't want them to lose their confidence, because when they're open, he wants them to shoot, because you beat rivals this way, and it's just, I don't know. I keep rambling. I apologize.
No, you're fine. To me, the most impressive part, obviously, the three-point shooting and stuff like that, everything you mentioned, which, by the way, Locked On Illini listeners will get this because you've mentioned it before, but I don't think Ben Hummerkaus is going to church saying people don't like him anymore. He's going to church. People like him there, okay? That's an inside story, Ben Hummerkaus. Listen to Locked On Illini if you want to know the inside story there. But anyway, I got to be honest. I was more impressed with the Illinois defense at the end of the game more than I was the offense. The offense, they were starting to hit threes up until that moment, right? I think it was Dre Gibbs-Lawhorn that shot a three off in a V6 double team, and I was like, oh my gosh, they just don't have it. Like, they don't have the three-point shooting today. Why didn't, DGL cut there? And then it was like after that, they just started hitting threes, and I was like, okay, well, I'm glad I didn't tweet that out. I look pretty stupid if I said that at this point, but as far as I'm concerned, the strip by Will Riley there at the end of the game, off the pick and roll to Trey Kaufman, Kylin Boswell, dude, he was in all sorts of trouble all night with the
Yeah.
screening and everything they were doing. But then finally, he was getting around those screens. I don't know if it was fatigue of Purdue or what it was, but he just found a way to start getting around some of those screens at the top of the key on Braden Smith that just made Braden Smith hesitate that one extra second he needed. And also, Braden Smith started having some errant passes there at the
Mhm.
end. Now, you're not going to find much Braden Smith slander from me tonight. The dude almost had a triple double, okay? And I went over to the Purdue message boards for a little bit just to kind of get a taste of what's going on over there. And there were people blaming Braden Smith, and I'm like, guys, you can't blame Braden Smith here. You cannot blame Braden Smith in this game. Did he have a few errant passes? Sure. Did he go 2 for 9 from three? Sure. But the dude was absolutely electric all game. His quickness, everything he was bringing to the table. Really, it was Kylin Boswell getting the defense at the end of the game. Like I said, Will Riley, that steal that led to the Kasparis Jaconas three. I mean, just talk about this defense here for a second, Sonny. Like this defense is what this team needed late in the game to pull away because they were scoring with Purdue. They were doing just fine scoring. It was the defense that needed to make its resurgence, and it did.
Purdue in that first half was scoring 1.23 points per possession. Illinois was doing just fine offensively in that first half, but Purdue, they just could not stop Purdue from scoring. And Purdue's been on fire as of late on the offensive end in their last couple of victories. So it looked like it was going to be one of the same old, same old. Illinois was going to be tasked by, they had to outscore Purdue. But as you said, I really like Kylin Boswell in that second half. I think he made a lot of adjustments himself. It's funny, all season long, hand up, I've been saying I can't wait to put Braden Smith on Boswell Island. I watched that first half, and at halftime, I was like, well, that was one of the dumbest things I've ever said in my life. Because Braden Smith was just running circles around. Like, it was a simple matter of he decided where he wanted to shoot the shot or which guy he wanted to pass it to, and it was an easy bucket every single time. And I was venting in our Locked On Illini Discord. I was like, we've had 5 days to prepare for this. What's the game plan? But in that second half, Kylin, I think, did a really good job, not just bothering Braden. It's just one of those things where Kylin's so big that, 25, 30 minutes into a game, having somebody that big lean on you, constantly hitting you, like that just kind of wears on, especially guys smaller than him. But Kylin was actually doing a really good job on the wings of Purdue, on the big guys of Purdue whenever he was switched to him. And that's kind of the cheat code that Illinois has. Kylin was in charge of guarding Cooper Flagg. Kylin was in charge of guarding Danny Wolf against Michigan. And then today he switches to a guy like Braden Smith. And there's not a lot of point guards in the country that a head coach would trust to, like, it doesn't matter your height, doesn't matter your size. Kylin's going to not necessarily shut you down. Of course, Braden Smith, as you said, almost a triple-double. And I just want to be clear, not a triple-double, almost a triple-double. We can thank the announcer for that, I think, because I think with 8 minutes left, they made a point.
Him. He definitely jinxed him.
They're like, Braden Smith with his 10th assist, he's only one rebound away with 8 minutes left. And then just it's pretty funny that, he never was able to nab that last rebound. But, for me, I know the offensive firepower is there for this Illinois team. And the only thing I'm wondering about is if the defense can step up. Because earlier in the year, the first half of the season, they're one of the best defensive teams in the country. Then the calendar year hit, everyone got sick. And, I'm not making excuses, but, when people are sick and when people are injured, you don't practice that often. And I think on defense, that hurts more than it hurts on the offensive side. And so you just lose, being in sync with some of your teammates and whatnot. And ever since that Duke game, this team's been healthy again. This team's practicing like they've been practicing all season long. And I don't know necessarily if that's just a coincidence on why Illinois is now 3-0 with 3 really impressive wins.
Jason says, JR, the thing I want to know is Illinois going to go up in the power rankings. You bet your bottom dollar they're going to go up in the power rankings now. Jason, listen, I said, like, I totally got the sickness stuff, right? Like, I was one of the people that was saying it with Illinois
Right,
because,
right.
I mean, I said last episode, Illinois is a Final Four caliber team. They have that ceiling. Have they shown it all season? No, they've been sick a lot of the season. And so this is something you have to take into account. But I don't power rank teams based off their ceiling. I power rank teams based off of what I've seen from you this season. And what I saw from Illinois was they were not a top five team in the Big Ten recently. They've changed that now with the big win at Michigan, this win over Purdue. They're at least top five at this point. I mean, they've passed UCLA, they've passed Purdue, like Maryland, Wisconsin, those teams are up there as well. They've maybe passed. I mean, they've probably passed Michigan at this point too, right? I had them in my top four, so they've probably passed them. I'll have it for sure on Monday morning with Kent, but. I mean, this is an impressive win, not just because Illinois hit threes, but because of what Illinois was able to do on the defensive end, everything you're saying about him. And then Kylin Boswell rebounding as well. 5 rebounds tonight. He was the second leading rebounder for this team. Kasparis Chakonis had 7 rebounds. He was the leading rebounder. Only 3 rebounds tonight for Visic, but he also only played 27 minutes because he was in some foul trouble, so that adds to it. But I mean, there was nobody on this Purdue team that was skying up for rebounds over Kylin Boswell. Some of the rebounds he was going up for and getting in this game, just fantastic to me, fantastic. Sonny, I do want to turn it around, talk about Purdue just for a second. I know you're mostly Illinois, but I do want to talk Purdue just for a second and kind of get some thoughts there. So this Purdue team lost 4 in a row. Then they won 2 in a row. Now they lose this one at Illinois. We've speculated on some possible, is this team good enough to make it to a Final Four or not? I saw some people saying they were the other day. You tell me if you agree with me or not. I think this Purdue team has Final Four caliber players on it, but I think they also have caliber players on it that are not even NCAA tournament good. I'm not going to name any names, but if you listen to the last episode where Purdue played, you know that I think that about one. Well, I'll just say his name, Cam Heidi. Like he is to me one of the players that is not doing. And I wrote in my notes like, good for him. He recovered. He had that good, what was it, tie up, steal type of thing, which could have possibly been called for a foul, but it wasn't against KJ. Then he goes down and he scores on that very next possession, and then he fouls out. The dude ends the game with 2 points. What was it? He ends the game with
2 points,
2 points, 2 rebounds, 5 fouls. He fouls out after 17 minutes. Like, I get Braden Smith, Fletcher Lawyer, and Trey Coffin-Wren are excellent. Like, these guys are Final Four caliber players, but you have to have more from your other players. Harris gave it to him in this one. Cox gave it to him at points in this game, but you're not getting what you need from Miles Colvin. You're not getting what you need offensively from Caleb Furst. Caleb Furst just catch the ball, right? Like there were at least 2 passes that Braden Smith had to him, which weren't completely on the money, but just went right through Caleb Furst's hands. And I'm like, dude, like you play solid enough defense, that's fine. If you can get some rebounds, that's fine. But at the end of the day, like this Purdue team is not going to be able to get to the Final Four just with those 3. Which, by the way, Fletcher Lawyer in this game, 14 points, looks like a pretty good stat line, 6 for 8 from the free throw line. He was pretty much non-existent after about the final 15 minutes of that game. Whatever Illinois did, getting around the screens, doing a better job of staying with them, whatever they did, they excelled at because Fletcher Lawyer was not nearly as existent. They stopped running stuff for him, is really what happened. And he wasn't there. So back to the Final Four caliber thing. Do you think Purdue's Final Four caliber? Yes or no, Sonny?
I don't think so. And I think you kind of nailed on why. I think they got 3 Final Four players, right? But I mean, if we ran this exercise, right, the best player in today's game was Braden Smith. And if we were playing, building our own programs, building our own teams, the first guy you would probably take is Braden Smith. But I would argue 7 of the next 9 are Illinois guys. And, I just think that Matt being so insistent on, not necessarily utilizing the transfer portal like a guy like Brad Underwood will, or, Rick Pitino, like this newer generation is kind of using the transfer portal. I think right now you kind of see the faults of that because Matt was counting on some of these younger players to grow into their roles, and either they aren't capable of doing it, a guy like Heidi, or they're just not ready yet. And unfortunately now they're wasting what looks like could be, a Big Ten Player of the Year season from Braden Smith, two potential All-Americans, but it's just they don't have enough support around them. Tonight's a perfect example, right? Braden Smith, almost a triple-double, 18, 12, and 9. TKR, Illinois couldn't stop him. 29 points, 7 rebounds. Two absolute studs. But they got very little help. And they lost to an Illinois team which had a good all-around game, don't get me wrong, but their best player had 10 points on 3 of 10 shooting. So it's not like, it's just one of those where I think Purdue right now has a ceiling. They've got one of the worst 2-point defenses in the entire country. And I just don't think they're really athletic enough and just talented enough outside the top 2 guys. Yeah, again, Lawyer's a good basketball player. Don't get me wrong. He is a Final Four caliber player. But I think there's just a huge divide in between number 3 and their 4th best player.
Yeah, and sometimes I think just Painter gets away from Lawyer too much sometimes. Like, I think sometimes, I'm not trying to disparage Lawyer here and say he only scored 4 points in like the last 15 minutes of the game or something like that, and say that it's his fault. I looked around and I said, you were running so much stuff for Lawyer beforehand, and he was getting open, he was getting to the hoop, and he was drawing fouls. Like, he was doing a great job. And then, I don't know if it was just Avicic was out of the game and that completely changed things for him or what, but they stopped running stuff to Lawyer, and it was like, you got to get back to that stuff. You can't expect Braden Smith to be Superman all game long. Can Braden Smith be Superman for you? Yes, he can. He absolutely can. He's one of the best players in the country, but you can't put that on him night in and night out. That action they ran from the baseline, it was a super simple screen on Kasparis Jakonas to get Fletcher Lawyer open just enough for him to get that shot off. That was fantastic. Do as much of that as possible, but they didn't do it later on, and I think they suffered for it. So, Sonny, my big takeaway from this game, and then we'll move on. I want to see what you think about it. My big takeaway from this game is that Illinois can shoot themselves out of a game, and they can shoot themselves right back into a game. Listen to these numbers. You ready for this? All right. They start the game 3 of 3, which if they lost this game, I would have said that was the worst thing that could have happened to Illinois, was to start the game.
That thought crossed my mind too. Yeah.
From there, Illinois goes 0 for 11 on their next 11 3-pointers, only to be relieved by Will Riley's buzzer beater there at the 3. Their next whatever number, they go 2 for 20. After going 3 for 3, they go 2 for 20. They finally take the lead when they start shooting over 30% from 3. I mean, would you agree with that assessment? Illinois, they shoot themselves out. They shoot them right back into a game. What's your thoughts there?
I mean, 100%, right? Like, it's kind of a running joke at this point. We've waited and waited to see, if the season got late enough where Brad Underwood would finally shift his strategy a little bit. But, as I kind of alluded to earlier, Brad has built a certain type of team, and that's the team that he's envisioned. And, despite the struggles today, actually, ultimately they finished, 36.7, am I reading that correctly? So not a bad percentage, but it's those 2 3-pointers at the end from Ben, from Kasparis, where he just trusts his players, right? He doesn't ever tell them to stop. And while that may have led to some headaches earlier in the year, I think it's all building towards March. And, the type of moments that we're going to see 2 weeks from now, well, we got a preview of it tonight.
Yes, you did. Last thing, really fast, and then we'll get out of here. Or we'll get out of here. We'll go to the next segment. Assists tonight for Illinois, 20 assists on 28 made field goals. That's what you love to see as an Illinois fan. It's not just KJ, going around at the top of the key. It's not just Will Riley getting into isolation situations. They did do that at times, and they can do that. But they shared the ball a lot in this game, did a really good job, and it was good stuff.